Welcome to Literary Libations with Librarians. It is February and we are excited to share some of the books that we've been reading and enjoying. And as we share some of our titles, if you want to get your hands on any of them, there's several ways to go about doing that. The first and probably the quickest is to just call your local branch of the Monroe County Library System and speak to the staff there, and they'll be more than happy to assist you. If you want to go on and do it yourself and you're looking for a physical version, a hardcover or a paperback, you can do that by accessing our online catalog, which the web address for that is on your screen now. If you see some of our titles are available, one of our provided digital platforms, you can access those just by going onto your device, download the platform, get yourself logged in. You do need a library card number. And those are Libby, which provides downloadable ebooks and audiobooks, and Hoopla, which provides downloadable ebooks, audiobooks, and also movies, music, and graphic novels. And the special thing about Hoopla, because the way that platform works, is if you see a title on there with a lightning bolt next to it, it means that multiple people can have it checked out at the same time. So it means there is no wait for that item and you can download it immediately. And I am Jennifer Graneski. I'm the Dundee Area Supervisor. And I'm hearing a lot of static. Are you guys hearing static? Okay, I don't know what that is. I apologize if that comes through on the recording. So I'm the Dundee Area Supervisor, and February, if you didn't know, is Library Lovers Month. So our kickoff question for this month is, what do you love about libraries? And listen, you ask that of a librarian, we could go on for quite a while. So it's really hard for us to say, okay, here's the one thing. But for me, I think it's that a library is a place that welcomes everybody, no matter your age, no matter your background, no matter why you're in there. We are happy to have you. And you don't have to pay any money to hang out at the library. You know, you go into a coffee shop, it's kind of expected you're going to buy something. And I love that the library is like, listen, you know, yesterday at our library, it blew my mind. After school, we had, I think, 10 teen boys in the library for, I think they were waiting for like an athletic practice of some sort. But they were in there, you know, one young man checked out some of our manga, another couple got on our computers and did some stuff. 2 thumbs up to the parents. They were very well behaved. But, you know, that's a place where they can come and gather and they're not going to get like, what are all those teenage boys doing together? They're going to cause problems. It's going to be an issue. So they can come. Our senior citizens love to come in. So listen, I'm going on and on. I love libraries because they welcome everybody and it's a place where you don't have to pay to gain access. All right, also with us this week is Jessica Otto, who is our head of the collections department. And what do you love about libraries, Jessica?
I think what I love most about libraries, and well, first of all, let me say I agree with everything you say. But in addition, I think what I love most also is the fact that despite that some folks say that libraries are no longer relevant, I feel that libraries have done an amazing job at staying relevant to the information and entertainment needs, while still staying true to the more traditional information needs of our patrons. So if you want to use the library to come in to read books for pleasure or get some homework, we're here for you for that. But if you are interested in some more contemporary services, if you want to stream a movie, you can do that through your Monroe County Library System. If you want to learn about your family history, you can come into the library and do that. If you want to access reliable and bias-free financial literacy information, with library has a database for you to do that. So I feel like we're really working hard to stay relevant and stay an important part of the community.
Excellent. Thank you, Jessica. And Jessica has the most in-depth knowledge of all the resources the library offers, because if you don't know what a head of collections does, she's the one that makes sure we have access to all of those resources. So she knows what we've got. Thank you, Jessica. Also with us is Jen McCarty, who is the circulation supervisor at our Ellis branch.
You guys are taking all of my answers. So what initially I was going to say, and I'm still going to say it, kind of encompasses what both of you said. There is something in a library for everyone. And that's what I love the most. You're not a reader, that's okay. We have movies, we have music. You can get, physical DVDs, you can get physical CDs. We have streaming. So if you're not interested in, borrowing a CD, you can stream music. You want nonfiction, we've got that. You want graphic novels, we've got that. There's something in a library for every single person, and it doesn't cost you anything. You want to come to programs, you want to come to a play, have your kids do a play program, you want to do a story time. There's literally something for every single person in the library. And that is just an amazing thing to have all of these resources, all of these programs, all of this available for free.
You, Jen. We lost you a little bit at the end, so I don't know if there's an issue with your mic, but we lost you just a tad at the end. So thank you. Oh, there we go. Now I hear you again. But thank you. And one of the things you mentioned was programming, which, yeah, we can go on and on about our programming, go on our website, go to the event calendar. Throughout our entire county, there are programs going on for all ages, for so many different interests. The blues programming is going on right now. So yes, if you like music, there are concerts at least once a week at every branch throughout the month of February and one in March. So make sure, avail yourself of all of the things that we have available. All right, so to get us talking about what we've been reading and enjoying in February, I'm going to ask Jessica to kick us off.
Sure. So my first title gives us the origin story of one of literature's greatest villains, Hannibal Lecter, aka Hannibal the Cannibal. Hannibal Rising by Thomas Harris is the fourth book in the Hannibal Lecter series. The book opens in 1941 with an 8-year-old Hannibal living a comfortable life with his parents and his younger sister, Misha. They live in a castle in Lithuania. The castle has belonged to the Lecter family for hundreds of years. Now, after Germany invades the Soviet Union, the fighting on the Eastern Front starts to get a little too close to Lecter Castle, and the family is forced to flee their castle, and they end up living in another residence they have that they refer to as their hunting lodge to live out the rest of the war. And unfortunately, when they are at the hunting lodge, a tragedy occurs that leaves Hannibal and Misha to fend for themselves as orphans. The children then soon find themselves captives of 6 Soviet deserters intending on looting the Lecter's family lodge. Days later, Hannibal is found by a Soviet tank crew wandering alone in the snow, wearing a chain around his neck with no memory of what happened to Misha. Hannibal is eventually returned to Lecter Castle, which has now been converted into a Soviet orphanage for boys. And he is found to be irreparably traumatized by his ordeal at the hunting lodge, and he has lost his ability to speak, except for when he calls out his sister's name at night in his sleep. But one day, after Hannibal spends a few years at the orphanage, his uncle, Robert Lecter, comes to the orphanage and removes him to take him home with him. His uncle has been spending a few years trying to find out what happened to his brother and his brother's family, and has now finally found Hannibal at this orphanage. And so he takes him back to his home in France. And his uncle is also hopeful of finding Misha as well. So as Hannibal begins his new life in France, he forms a connection with his uncle's wife, who is known as Lady Murasaki. So she is originally from Japan, and she came to France in 1936 when her father became the Japanese ambassador to France. And then she stayed in France after marrying Hannibal's uncle. So Hannibal really starts to flourish in this new life, and he eventually regains the use of his voice. And when speaking with Lady Murasaki, he eventually learns that she also lost her entire family in the war. Her entire family was killed in the Hiroshima bombing. And so she and Hannibal sort of form a deep bond over the fact that they've both lost all of their family in the war. So around the same time, Hannibal is introduced to a French detective called Inspector Popeil, who he's also lost his family in the war. And now he investigates war crimes and war criminals. And as such, he is vaguely aware of Hannibal's situation, and he knows that he's lost his family. And because of that, he has a certain amount of sympathy for him. However, he also believes that Hannibal may be guilty of the murder of a local butcher, but he doesn't have any real evidence to charge Hannibal for the crime. So he just decides to sort of keep a close eye on him in hopes of finding out some more information or getting some evidence. So years pass, and by the age of 18, Hannibal has become the youngest person admitted to medical school in France. Although his life is showing promise, he is still tormented by the fact that so many years later, he still does not remember what happened to Misha. And he doesn't know if this is because he was just too young when all of this happened, or if his mind is just, whatever happened is just so horrible that his mind is just refusing to let him go there. So in his role, and as a medical student, one day he is inadvertently introduced to a substance called sodium thiopental, which is also referred to as a truth serum that is being used on prisoners of war in hopes of enhancing their memories of crimes that they were involved of, in hopes of tracking down and locating individuals that have gone missing during the war. And when Hannibal learns this, he decides to use that substance on himself in hopes of finding out what happened to Misha. And after he does, he finally does remember what happened to her. And more importantly, he knows who was responsible for it. And he begins to plot his revenge against those responsible. And when it's all said and done, what will Hannibal have become? In the words of Inspector Popeil, there's not a word for it yet. For lack of a better word, we'll call him a monster. So Hannibal Rising was first published in 2006. This is the final novel in the Hannibal Lecter series. It spent 15 weeks on the New York Times hardcover bestseller list and another 30 weeks on the paperback list. So even though this is the fourth book in the series, it's a prequel, and it happens years before any of the other books. So you can easily read this without having read any of the first three books in the series. I have read all four of them, and I do recommend all of them. So I recommend this one to fans of Hannibal Lecter content, whether you are familiar with him through the books or the movies or both. Also, if you are just a fan of grisly tales of revenge, this book will not disappoint.
Nice. Thank you, Jessica. Awesome. So how does a family get two castles?
Well, they were really super well-to-do. And there apparently was, like, even though we only know one Hannibal Lecter, that he was apparently the 8th Hannibal Lecter in the line of Lecters, and all the Lecters were very successful and well-to-do. And so I guess they just saved up their money, and voila, two castles.
Got their castles. Nice.
At their castle.
You guys don't have two castles?
Yeah, I thought everybody had two castles.
I mean,
Oh. So, if grisly tales of revenge are not your scene, maybe you want to consider my second title instead. So as we mentioned earlier, February is Library Lovers Month, and to celebrate, I wanted to share with you the most recent title I read that takes place in a library, and that title is the 2022 book, The Library Fish by Alyssa Seton Capuccilli, with amazing illustrations by Gladys Jose. And you may know the author from her popular World of Biscuit books featuring the adorable Biscuit the dog and her Katie Duck series. So, Library Fish. Our story starts with Mr. Hughes, the librarian, finding a goldfish in a fishbowl on the front steps of the library. Very conveniently, there is a list of instructions for the care of and feeding of goldfish taped to the bowl, including instructions that the fish must be read to daily because the fish loves stories. Mr. Hughes does not hesitate to take the fish inside the library, saying, "Some libraries have their lions, but this library will have you, fish." The fish found a home on Mr. Hughes's desk, which suited her just fine because from there she could welcome all the library visitors and she could get a look at every single book that was borrowed and returned. She quickly became known as Library Fish. So Library Fish grows to love story time. She loves to hear Mr. Hughes read out loud. Sometimes he reads in a bold voice. Sometimes he reads in a whisper. And he reads stories that make her laugh out loud, stories that introduce her to exciting new characters, and learning about distant planets that Library Fish may one day visit. Library Fish also loves going out in the library bookmobile. So everything is going great for Library Fish until one day, Mr. Hughes does not show up at the library. In fact, no one does. Library Fish waits and waits, but the library doors remain closed. When Library Fish looks out the window, she sees thick snow falling faster and harder than she has ever seen before. She remembers a story that Mr. Hughes read during story time where snow fell so high that the city streets had to be shut down. Could snow also shut down the library? What will Library Fish do if no one comes to the library? How will she occupy her time? And what about her friend, the bookmobile that's parked out in the snow? Be sure to check out a copy of Library Fish to get an answer to these questions and more. So one of my favorite things about this book is the amount of diversity featured in the illustrations throughout this book, especially the illustrations of library patrons. And I think it really goes to show the unique place that libraries have in our society, as we were sort of touching on in the opening question, that regardless of one's background or circumstances, that the library is a place where everyone can find something relevant to their information and entertainment needs. And in these divisive times that we are living in, I like to think of libraries as the great unifier, where people from all walks of life can come together and find some common ground. And I think both the author and the illustrator of this work, they really seem to get that. And I love that they are choosing to share that message with our younger readers to ensure that libraries can remain that great unifier for generations to come. So I recommend this book to anyone who loves libraries, reading, or of course, if you just love picture books about adorable goldfish, this one's for you as well. Oh, and breaking Library Fish news. There is a brand new sequel to this book called The Library Fish Learns to Read that was just published on February 7th and is now available to request through Monroe County Library System. So if you are looking for a way to celebrate Library Lovers Month, be sure to check out both library fish titles, or you could choose from one of the literal hundreds of other titles about libraries that are offered by your Monroe County Library System.
Thank you, Jessica. I love library fish. Gives me warm fuzzies.
I'm
right.
over here looking it up going, can I take this home? And it's checked out. It's how popular library fish is. I wanted it today.
All right. And we will have Jen share her reads for February.
Okay. My first one I'm going to talk about is called The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. This is probably one of the most interesting books I've read in a while. Definitely a different topic, I want to say topic, but just definitely a wild genre. I do lead our fantasy and science fiction book club here at Ellis, and we read this book as our January book. And even though it's a fantasy and science fiction book club, we all have really different likes, and every single person liked this book, which hasn't happened in quite a while. So this particular story follows Devon, who is part of the family. She belongs to a clan of book eaters. They are human-ish creatures, but instead of eating food, they survive on books. So for her family, the boys can pretty much eat whatever they want, and the girls, who are incredibly rare, are basically fed fairy tales and very light romances. We don't want them to get any ideas, you know? Girls are incredibly prized because they're rare. So to keep the families strong and to keep book eaters being born, once the girls come of age, they are wed to another family, the goal being to have a child and then move to a new family. Basically, the girls are wed, very much quotation marks, 3 times, and then they're able to retire back with their regular family and just have a life of leisure. But that, maybe not so great. And this book is told, we start with Devon sort of in present times, and then we kind of go back and forth to her childhood, to her marriages, and figure out how she got where she is. She is currently living in modern society, kind of hiding who she is. And we also know she has a child with her. And there's something different about her child. He doesn't eat books like the regular book eaters. His diet is a little more unique. So what made this book so incredibly fascinating is the way it unfolds. Going back and forth from current times to what has happened to Devon, how she became who she is, learning about the book eater families. There's a lot of little mysteries mixed up in here. Early on, we meet a regular human man who is a journalist. And not every chapter, but a lot of the chapters will start with excerpts from his book on book eaters. And we're like, is this guy still alive? How does he know this information? Where do these things come from? Learning sort of the history of the book eaters, learning some of the history of the families, and figuring out who Devon is, how Devon got to this place where in the human world trying to survive, and what exactly is going on with her child, and can she help her child live in the world? One of the really fascinating things about the book eaters as a species, I guess, everything that they eat, they retain. So if I need a map of a particular area, I can eat the map and now I know the locations. She makes a comment in one point that they're like, okay, well, what train do we need to get on? And she's like, oh, well, the 10:30 to blah, blah, blah. What, you don't eat the train schedule at your new place every time you go somewhere? So definitely a fascinating thing. She can speak a ton of languages just by eating a book in that language, or eating, a dictionary in that language, or eating a how to speak French book. So she has sort of this unknown amount of knowledge simply just by eating books. This book it's definitely fantasy, but it's also definitely some mystery. There is some violence, so if that's something that you don't love, maybe steer clear, but Book Eaters is definitely one of the most unique books I've read in a long time. And like I said, even though it is fantasy and not everyone thinks they like that, I think it appeals to a pretty wide variety of people. And it was definitely unlike anything I've read in a really long time. So an incredibly good book. Cannot recommend it any more highly. My second book, switching gears a little bit, after Book Eaters, I will admit I have been in a bit of a book funk. And nothing breaks a book funk for me than just a cheesy, cozy romance. And By the Book by Jasmine Guillory fits that bill so highly. So this is the second in the Meant to Be series. It's a series as in they all kind of share a theme, but they're not like you have to read them in order. Basically, this series is by a Disney imprint, and they are updated retellings of Disney stories. So the first book took on Cinderella. This book takes on Beauty and the Beast. So our main character's name is Izzy, and she has, or Isabel, Beauty and the Beast. She has a job in publishing. She wants to be a writer, but can kind of struggling a little bit. When she gets this job in publishing, she thinks this is it. This is going to be perfect. And a couple of years in, she realizes she's working her butt off and not really getting a whole lot out of it. So when she finds an opportunity to possibly impress her boss by getting this spoiled child of celebrities to finish his memoir by going to his house and basically being like, you're going to give me the book and you're going to give it to me now, she takes it. So she visits this reclusive celebutante kind of character who has a history and a reputation as being a little bit of a bad boy, a little rough around the edges, a little, shall we say, beastly. It's got a reputation. She visits his house, and very quickly he says, fine, you want to help me write the book? You can stay here and help me write the book. Well, now she's staying at his house. Oh, what did she get herself into? And of course, it's a tale as old as time. Some things happen. If you are a Disney fan, you will love a lot of the little Easter eggs to actual Beauty and the Beast. If you just like light, kind of cheesy romances, you'll love this. It's also definitely more diverse than a lot of traditional, fairy tales. Izzy is African American. Our Beast, his name is Bo. He is biracial. A lot of the other characters are more diverse. So that is wonderful updating to see a more diverse cast of characters. Like I said, the Easter eggs are great. There's a ton of little ones that you're like, oh, I see what you did there. That's cute. Just really fun, light romance, and it got me out of my book funk. So By the Book, incredibly good.
I second both of those books, Jen. I've read both of those, so 2 thumbs up for both of those. And the Disney book that you were talking about, the Meant to Be series, all of those are standalones.
Yes.
So you don't have to read them in any order. And the third book is coming out in June, and it's going to be around the Little Mermaid story. So good synchronicity there, Disney, with the new Little Mermaid coming out. Good job, Disney. So yes, great books, both of them. For my books, let's get my screen up here. February is also Black History Month. So I wanted to highlight, it's just one book out of all of the amazing history biographies that we have. In particular, I just want to give a shout out to the amazing depth of children's nonfiction that is out there. There's so many great children's nonfiction biographies in particular. So if you feel you don't have time to commit to, a 300 or 400 page biography and you're just trying to get an overview of a subject, check out some of those children's books. They really are amazing. Choosing Brave was written by Angela Joy and illustrated by Janelle Washington. It was a 2023 Caldecott Honor Book. The Caldecott is given by the American Library Association for superb children's illustrations. It was also a winner of a Coretta Scott King Award. And I can't see what the other honor book that it was. I don't know what that award picture is, but so this is a highly honored book, and it's a very important book. So you can see on the subtitle there on your screen, it is Choosing Brave, How Mamie Till Mobley and Emmett Till Sparked the Civil Rights Movement. And if you do not already know the story of Emmett Till, I'm going to give it very briefly as best that I can. I'm using the book's own words. So Mamie Till Mobley became a voice for change when her 14-year-old son, I just want to repeat that, Emmett Till was 14. That is the age of my son. And I cannot imagine what he went through, nor what his mother, Mamie Till, went through. Her 14-year-old son was brutally murdered while visiting the South in 1955. His death became a rallying point for the civil rights movement, a movement ignited when his mother propelled his name to the forefront of history. Her story is a testament to the power of love and one woman's unwavering pursuit for justice. Mamie fearlessly refused to allow America to turn away from what happened to her only child. She turned pain into a legacy that ensured her son's life mattered. She forever reminds us, even during the ugliest days, to choose dignity, to choose voice, and most of all, to choose brave. So if you don't know the story of Emmett Till, I will give it very briefly. I think that gives you a little bit there, and the book gives an overview. I will say this book in particular is focused on the bravery of Emmett Till's mother, Mamie. There is a movie that recently came to DVD that you can check out from the library called Till. And there are also several great documentaries that are available through the library about Emmett Till as well. So in the book, it says, in the words of Mamie Till Mobley, "Let the people see what I have seen. We have averted our eyes for too long, and everybody needs to know what happened to Emmett Till." And the first page starts on the day that they found Emmett Till's body. He was from Chicago and had gone down to visit with family down south. And he was just here on a visit. And the sheriff planned, when the body was found, that they would dig a grave that day and bury him in Mississippi so that nobody would see what had happened. And in the words of the book, Mamie did the harder thing. She said, "No, you send my son home." It was the braver thing that changed everything. It arrived and it was locked, and the box didn't have a key, and there were actually legal papers that forbidded anybody from opening the casket. And again, Mamie Till said, "That's not happening. I'm going to see my son, and I'm going to see what happened to him." And then she had an open casket funeral so that everybody could see what happened to her child. This book handles that in a way that older children are not going to be traumatized, but opens the doors for discussion. But be aware, as an adult, it was horrifying. And you can watch the documentaries, you can look it up, on newspapers from websites. But again, she did the harder thing. She did the braver thing to show the injustice that happened. And I'm going to pause here and go over a little bit about the story in case you aren't familiar with it. So 14, again, he's 14. He walks into a store in Mississippi, and the store clerk accuses him, in her testimony in the trial later, of whistling at her and attacking her. In 2017, in an interview with, I want to get the title and the author right, she recants her testimony that she gave in an interview for Timothy B. Tyson's book, The Blood of Emmett Till, saying that the attack didn't happen and nothing that boy did could ever justify what happened to him. So something happened in that store. I think it was next to nothing. She flipped out because he was a young Black boy. She told her husband and his half brother went and kidnapped Emmett Till from the home that he was staying in. They took him, tortured him, killed him, tied him to a cotton gin, and threw him in the Tallahatchie River. His body was found 3 days later. The store clerk's husband and a half brother were arrested before the body was found. And they confessed to kidnapping Emmett. They did not confess to killing him. During the trial, the jury, all white, deliberated for all of an hour and came back and found them innocent. And the trial took place in 1955. And then in 1956, the two men did an interview with Look magazine where they confessed to beating and killing Emmett Till. And because of double jeopardy, they could not be tried again. And they received $4,000 for the interview. So when she received Emmett Till's body, it was horrifying. And she looked at it and said, everybody needs to know what happened to my son, even though I want to protect him and I want to protect myself. And so when she opened up that casket and she opened up that funeral to the public and to the media, pictures were taken, they were published in the paper, and people started to realize this is wrong. We need change. So that's that part. Understand this is for older children. Read it before you read it with your children when you feel that they're of an age that you want to discuss these hard things about our country's history. But the book focuses on the bravery of Mamie. It gives you some of her early life, and then it also gives you about her life after Emmett died. And that's amazing too. This woman, she does get remarried. She goes back to school, gets her teaching degree. She teaches for over 20 years. She creates a group of dramatists who perform the speeches of Dr. King, and she called them the Emmett Till Players, and they performed around the country. So she did amazing things with her life. She took the worst of circumstances and said, this isn't right. We can do better. She didn't give up. She chose brave. She is inspiring, and I encourage everybody to check out this book. The illustrations are made out of paper. So if you're interested in art, Janelle Washington's art is paper cutting, and then she layers the colors in the paper, and then I don't know how they turn that into the pages for the book. Magic happens. But I strongly encourage you, check this out. If you are interested in any history, check out our children's nonfiction section at any time. There are so many amazing books there that you can learn so much from. So now I'm going to shift gears and talk about our read for Monroe County for our One Book, One Community read. So if you haven't heard of this before, Monroe County has been doing this for quite some time. Every year they pick one book that they encourage the entire county to read, and they put together the One Book, One Community read committee, puts together a calendar of events, and I have those here, but you're not going to be able to see them. Look them up online. If you go to the MCLS website, but like there's a whole, because it's going to black me out. So there's a whole poster there. The book this year is The River by Peter Heller. And Peter Heller is going to be coming to Monroe County to talk. And even if you haven't had a chance to read the book yet, I encourage you to come and listen to him. Having read the book, I think he's going to be an excellent speaker. His life experiences, if you are an outdoors person, are pretty incredible. He's gone to the Arctic. He's gone whitewater rafting on, like, I don't know whitewater rafting levels, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's like level 6 or something insane. Like, normal people should not be doing this. So he loves the outdoors. He's an excellent writer, so I'm guessing he's going to be a really good speaker. He will be in Monroe March 16th at 7 p.m. at the theater at the Monroe County Community College. Is that still the Lazy Boy Theater? I don't know what it's called anymore. So
Meyer Theater at the Lazy Boy Center.
there we go. Thank you. Whatever the correct term is there. So he will be there. So the book that we're reading, we just got to discuss this at book club. It is the story of two young men, Jack and Wynn, who decide to take a canoe trip, and they're in college somewhere, sort of, I think they're going into like their senior year maybe. And they decide to take a canoe trip in northern Canada. I don't remember the name of the exact river. So they're planning this. They're going to go on their canoe trip. They've actually planned for like 2 to 3 weeks so they can take their time. They're like super prepared. Jack is from out west and was an excellent horseman out there. And then Wynn's from the Northeast, so he kind of knows the forest and trees and plants, you know, all those things I don't know about, but are fascinating to read when other people know what they're doing. So they go on this canoe trip and things start to go wrong. First of all, they sight the very start of a forest fire in the distance, but they are knowledgeable enough to know how quickly fire can move. So they're starting to wonder, first of all, we aren't going to be able to do this trip leisurely. We're going to have to move in order to get picked up, because where they're at, you can't just like get out and like go find a car in a grocery store. They're in real wilderness. So that happens. They have a weird experience with another couple on the river where they can hear them arguing with each other. They have another moment that kind of gave me the Deliverance vibes. They see two other guys on the river. They're both kind of drunk and just odd. And as the story goes on, all of these things come together and they end up having to make some life and death decisions. And it's so good. And what was really interesting that we discussed at book club was the worldviews of Jack and Wynn. They were very different, even though they are best friends. Jack is very suspicious of everyone and is convinced that people in general probably aren't that great and you can't trust them. And there's history there as to why he's like that. And then Wynn is from sort of the opposite, where people are generally good and we need to trust each other to get along. And so those views start to conflict. They're dealing with other life and death stuff. It's so good. And it's not that long. I don't remember the page count. But if you like the outdoors, if you like suspense, if you like wilderness survival stories, this one has it all. It really is a page turner, and we had a great discussion at book club. So I encourage you to check the book out, contact your library. They'll find you a copy. It is in high demand right now, but they will help you get your hands on one. And if you don't have a chance to read it before the author's here, I still suggest coming to listen to him. So, and if you were at my book club and you happen to listen to this and I gave you the wrong information that the author wasn't coming this year, because I kind of missed that on the online calendar and we didn't have the paper ones, I'm so sorry. So make sure to come and hear the author. All right. So thank you to Jen and Jessica for sharing their recent reads. And thank you to those of you who listened. And we look forward to being back in March. And we wish you great Februarys. Thank you. Bye.